Nosferatu. Is it scary? It's safe to say that Nosferatu has divided the internet. Some people, they love it, they can't get enough of it, and others, like this guy on Reddit, thought it was basically a weird gothic version of Sonic the Hedgehog. But honestly, going at it from the perspective of how scary can it be kind of feels like the wrong vibe to go with. I mean, this style of movie, it isn't jump out of your seat in the classic horror movie way, though that's the intriguing puzzle. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. And more importantly, what do you do when evil kisses you better than your husband does? Well, you just have to kind of sit with those feelings for a bit, just like the movie's Victorian heroine, feeling all confused and morally disaligned until you're practically begging for the Dark Lord's claws to scratch that itch. That sense of dread is the real achievement here. Eggers, along with his talented crew and the wonderfully creepy Bill Skarsgård, has concocted the grossest, possibly most disgusting Dracula I have ever seen. And seriously, this guy makes Freddy Krueger look like the girl next door. But the scariest part about this Dracula, it goes way beyond just his revolting looks. After 2 hours jam-packed with chomping, inhaling, and some serious mind games, I found myself actually quite queasy. I do not care. I had that bite me first, ask questions later mentality, and I'm not ashamed. Anyway, Eggers does a brilliant job reimagining Bram Stoker's 127-year-old classic, crafting a vampire movie that vibes with our modern attraction to the strong man. And sure, some characters' names and locations have been swapped around, but the story, it's pretty much intact. We're still dealing with the spooky real estate deal in 1838. Ellen starts feeling the dread even before Thomas leaves, as Orog has already invaded her mind and her dreams, leaving her spellbound and totally obsessed. She makes those One Direction fans from 2010 look of sound mind. Ellen is Orlok's target in the classic film, but she doesn't have any pre-existing dark... Why is my dishwasher beeping?
A few moments later.
She doesn't have any pre-existing dark romantic connection to him, nor does she have a backstory of past dreams and spells. Meanwhile, Thomas is now wilting under Orlok's command, and basically he's becoming a vampire himself. He ends up signing a contract that he can't even read. It's basically a one-way ticket for Orlok to claim Ellen as his own, and she gets to live unhappily ever after. Cue the chaos as everyone races to save her from being colonised by both Orlok and Wisborg, which is about to become a rat-infested nightmare. You can really feel the tension building, but there are a few hiccups along the way. Adapting this story, which is mostly told through letters and diary entries, was going to be a task only someone like Christopher Tolkien could appreciate. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to my Lord of the Rings fans, especially when you're stuck with a bunch of Victorian wallflowers. The actors like Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Emma Corrin, they wander into what feels like a costume drama that it only really pops when the action hits. Even William Dafoe, playing the supernatural guru von Franz, he doesn't get to let loose like I was anticipating, and I can kind of sympathise with the critics from this standpoint. Ellen, she's a bit of a confusing character at times too. I think Lily-Rose Depp, she can't quite rescue her character from being a passive vessel for Dracula's whims, but there's this hilarious moment when her bed gymnastics convince her friend Anna that Ellen doesn't need an exorcist, she just needs her husband. So take from that what you will. As for Thomas, Nicholas is pretty solid as the everyman. He's got that strapping look going on, kind of like he belongs to an elite polo team. He can definitely act, and his performance shows that Eggers is taking this material seriously. The fear that he conjures isn't that classic, oh my god, let me cry and hide behind a cushion. It's a deeper, more relatable terror, and it does stick with you. Setting aside some jump scares, Eggers has made a Dracula movie that not only just showcases his skill, but there are some very gentle nods in there to the previous films. Speaking of other Dracula films, I felt such a range of emotions when I've watched them. Tragedy, fright, even a bit of embarrassment at times, but this time, Nosferatu dares you to feel both seduced and freaked out at the same time. And while other Dracula characters are recognisable as men, you can't quite find the actor inside Orlok. Is the kind of expressionism that speaks volume. The time has come. I must ask you a question. Do you see what I did there? I planned that. Please laugh. I need to retire. Anyway, Moustache Gate. Who knew one moustache would divide the internet? For me, it's a bold move, and it's also an opportunity for Eggers to flex his penchant for authenticity in depicting a vampire this way. Another bold move with Orog is that he bites victims in the chest, whereas in the original it was always the neck, and Eggers explained this was inspired by folklore in which vampires often drank blood from the chest. Eggers really knows how to cook up suspense when it comes to revealing the count. He keeps Orlok shrouded in mystery for long stretches, which is a fresh twist because in the 1922 classic, Orlok is front and centre with very little build-up, but Eggers takes a very different route. When we finally catch a glimpse of the new Orlok, he's not the tall, pointy-eared figure that Max Schreck portrayed, for example. Instead, he resembles a decaying zombie with flesh that it looks like it's been through the ringer. There are obviously those who felt it was too much, just a man, but for me it worked. And then there's poor Renfield, now named Knock, who's basically Dracula's eager little sidekick. So, fun little trivia fact for you, Hoult actually played Renfield last year in his own movie, but here Knock is portrayed by Simon McBurney, and he's got a seriously unsettling vibe, surrendering his identity to the darkness. It's not just his wild antics that haunt you, it's the way his devotion to Orlok strips him of everything, his dignity, his reason, even his clothes. As the movie shines a light on this heroic void at the heart of the story, that hopelessness feels both fresh and thrillingly clear. Toward the end, Eggers gives us a haunting shot that mirrors Orlok's imposing entrance. Knock is retreating away from camera, prattling on, maybe even dancing, I think, completely soulless. My stomach turned in recognition, my mind the light bulb moment, because this is where the divide of opinion stems from. The faithfulness to the source material and the stark reminder of how easy we are as humans to manipulate.